Good morning. Whoa, okay. I'm not very used to speaking to microphones, so here we go. I'm Guinevere, whatever, with the Willow Creek Reclamation Committee. This is my third year with them as the watershed coordinator. So today I'm going to be talking about partnerships and solutions that have worked over the 15 years that we've been in operation over there in Creed. So here we go. I like this map, even though I could get a better map. But here we are at Creed in the Creed Mining District, Creed Lake City. We are on the eastern flank of the San Juans. We are on the eastern side of the divide and considered part of the San Luis Valley, although sometimes they don't like to consider us. So we are headwaters to the Rio Grande, and so we're a pretty important player over there. I'm a novice geologist, but I thought this was pretty interesting. The La Garita caldera, which accounts for the geology over there, used to be the largest caldera that they found in the world. So you can see this purple line, 100 by 30 kilometers is what I found. To put that in some sort of reference, if it exploded today, it would be up to 3 feet of ash covering the entire state of California. So that's a pretty big caldera. Also, there are subsequent calderas, the Bachelor, which is the blue, and then the Creed, which is primarily responsible for the mineralization up there in Creed. Here's a better picture of that, and this dark gray area is where Creed Formation is found, and at one point there was a big lake up there, and it's pretty interesting. You can find all kinds of fossils of pine trees and things like that. So that's my geologist field. Here's some photos of the Creed area. If you're familiar with the Creed, these are the big pillars that you see when you enter Creed. Some miners back in the day. So Creed mining, I heard Camille or someone say that mining started here in the 1840s, 50s, I couldn't remember, but Creed was 1891 through 1893, which was the heyday. So we were kind of a latecomer. Otto Mears and everybody was passing the veins as they came to Lake City and Silverton. So in 1892, you could see a lot of people in the valley had moved in there. And then a better picture, this is up on top of the cliffs looking down. I really like this photo. Okay. So in its height, at its height, Creed had 10,000 people over there. Today we have about 500 year-round. You see a major influx in the 4th of July, but nothing like this. I really like this photo. Okay, so mining went from the 1891 to 1985 over there, so almost 100 years of mining over in the Creed area. The principal veins were the Amethyst and the Holy Moses right here, but there were 2 others, the Alpha Corsair and the OH vein, that were somewhat profitable, but not as much as the other 2. The Amethyst and Last Chance were the largest and most profitable mines over there, as you can see by this graph, and they were located, obviously, along the Amethyst. Silver was our principal money maker over there, and you can still, there are some mining operations that Mike McClure will talk about for silver that are going on currently. So after the 100 years of mining, we have what every mining town sees is this environmental degradation. This is the Solomon mine at it, and then you can see direct contact of mining waste with the creek, and then just aquatic and riparian degradation as well. So that's what we were left with after all the mining moved out. So the identifiable problems were lead, zinc, copper, cadmium, aluminum, manganese. We had a couple large fish kills in the 60s and 70s. The degraded riparian habitat, limited or non-existent fish populations, and then flood hazards of the city of Creed. So here's a picture of our watershed. This is West Willow and East Willow, and then the main stem joins right above Creed and goes through town, and then joins the Rio Grande just below town. So some early watershed work that we weren't a part of was the Humphreys Mill, but they did some capping of the Humphreys Mill's tailing that were below town. They also did a Solomon mine at it, which this was a 3 cell system that took all the heavy metals out of the Solomon mine adit and kept them in this sulfide-reducing environment. Unfortunately, it was really smelly and people didn't like it, so they broke the dams and made it not smell anymore. So they're not functioning at this time. I really like this sign because the 17 sword heads could be any number of people, and it could be just different types of sword heads at any given day. But basically, we're talking about 1985 when Creed switched over from a mining-based economy to a tourism-based economy. And so today you still see that people still really like their mining heritage. There's a lot of people still that worked in various mines over there. So it's very much alive. And people like to have that always considered when we do things. So when we formed the Willow Creek Reclamation Committee, it was after the CDPHE, Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment, found that the watershed water quality was very poor, and the EPA was looking at putting it on the National Priorities List, aka Superfund designation for the entire Creed mining district. We had just switched over from the mining base to the tourism-based economy, so people weren't very in favor of that because we didn't know how that was going to affect the economy. So, Steve Russell and Mark Haugen were in the know of this, and they let the city of Creed know, and they had a city meeting and asked for people for input on how to address these issues. So the Willow Creek Reclamation Committee was formed to address the future fish kills, improve the aspects of Willow Creek. Flood control measures, historic structures was a huge preservation. People really wanted to keep those. I think Bruce had a picture of the Commodore at first, and that's one of the most photographed pictures in America, Colorado. It's pretty well known at any rate. Reclaim the floodplain below town, and overall improve the water quality and physical habitat. So to do that, they identified these 6 objectives, basically saying what's in the watershed, what's affecting the water quality, and what can we do about it. So to begin, the beginning of the Willow Creek Reclamation Committee was about 1998, so this is our 15th year. We applied for grants with the help of the Division of Reclamation, Mining, and Safety, and they will be all over the place. They've been a huge partner for us, so we really appreciate them. With the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, the Geologic Service, lots of local people, the Public Health, Army Corps of Engineers, River Watch, and Creed Schools, which is pretty cool. So what we did is we did some underground investigations up here because there's a lot of mine workings. Some biological sampling to look at fish. There's fish shocking here, but we also looked at macroinvertebrates. These are guys in the Rio Grande taking water samples, and this is geophysical investigations, and I'm not really sure what he's doing with that thing. So that prompted the characterization of the creation of all these reports, and basically said, this is where your problem is, this is what you're going to do. And all these reports are available if you're ever interested in them. So first we set out to do the 5 mine projects. And all of these had waste rock that was having some sort of effect on either branch of East or West Willow Creek. And these are all our wonderful partners. The Forest Service was in on this one. And we did a lot with a little money to address 5 mines. $200,000, it's not that much, especially today. So here's the location of the park region, the Midwest, that's the one I can't ever remember. The Gormax, the Phoenix Mine, and the Phoenix Mill. So here's Creed, and all these other ones we'll talk about later. But they're in the upper portion of the watershed. So I've combined the old picture with some of the new pictures. So here's the park region, and then what it looks like today. As you can see, that's a lot of potential leaching or mine waste. So there we go. Phoenix Mine, and then the Phoenix Mill site, which there was actually a mill up there, and there was a lot of water collecting in these, and they still had some heavy metals in there. And this was a pretty good reclamation here. We have a lot of re-veg going on. And then the Midwest Mine. And basically what we did in those is we would take the mine waste and consolidate it, in some cases cap it, and then make sure that either the run-on or run-off was going around the waste rock. So next we looked at the Nelson Tunnel, the Amethyst, the Last Chance, and the Commodore waste rock piles. And we had Ken Wiley, who used to work in the mines, and he was instrumental in getting people access into the mine and everything. So we started with the Nelson Tunnel, and you can see all this wonderful acid mine drainage coming out of, this is the actual portal or Nelson Tunnel that we can go. Here's some old guys in front of it. And it's just right in front of, or right above the town of Creed in West Willow. So this is a map of what's going on in the underground workings of the Nelson Tunnel. It's pretty extensive. The portal that you saw that had the acid mine drainage is down here, and then the park region that we talked about earlier is way up here. So it's over a mile of underground working. This is Jeff Graves from DRMS in the Nelson Tunnel, and he is looking at all this. I love this picture because that's the water level that it was at. So basically in Nelson Tunnel they were looking at, it's one of the largest contributors of heavy metals into the Willow Creek. So they were looking at how to stop it from getting out of the mine contaminated. Could they treat it, and could they block off the water source? So they went in and investigated that, and they could block it off, but they couldn't really identify where the contamination was coming from. Rory, who's going to speak about the chemistry, will have a lot more interesting facts on the Nelson Tunnel later. So in 2005, we had a less than 20-year flood event that did this to the Nelson Tunnel Commodore area. So the EPA came in with their emergency response, and they took over this site. They basically rip-wrapped and made sure that everything was contained and designated it as a Superfund site, so we're no longer working on this portion. But above that area, above the Nelson Tunnel, there's the Last Chance and the Amethyst, and they're actually connected to the Nelson Tunnel workings as well. These are some pretty good photos of the hillside that they were working on back in the day. And this was before the reclamation activities. And the same kind of thing here was that we saw this direct contact with the creek and back here. So on this lower portion, which is the Amethyst, we put in riprap and just took the creek and separated the creek and the waste rock. Good aerial photo of the site. Good close-up before. And then this is an after where they're putting in the riprap and then doing some work on the Last Chance, grizzly right there. I really like this Last Chance because it is so steep. That guy is actually falling down. And this is not altered at all. So this is what they're dealing with, and there's the mine up here. So they were just throwing everything, and any water that came down was obviously collecting those heavy metals, and then Willow Creek is down here. So our contractors came in and recontoured it, and then put in this wall right here. We call it the Great Wall. It's just cement, and it's basically just physically separating the creek from those waste rocks. Some smaller projects that we did, but also with the help of everybody, was the Whitney Gulch project, and it's a tributary right above town. Basically, it was this culvert that was going from the narrow canyon into Willow Creek, and if a 100-year flood event happened, it would take out the road and potentially take out some things above the creek. So the director at the time actually got out there with his traco and put in this big 100-year flood-containing culvert. Excuse me, I'm very nervous. So here's the change. This is the old one, and this is the aerial above that, and here's some settling ponds, and then further down here is the city of Creed. So if something were to happen, it could really do some damage. And this is what Kelly put in here. So that's one of our smaller projects. And then we did some work with the Mineral County Fairgrounds. They're separate entity from the Mineral County, but in this instance, we helped write grants and we helped facilitate all their work. So we were kind of a different partner in this situation where we just were kind of a background partner. But basically, John Parker donated this land to the Mineral County Fairgrounds Association for their, they plan to have a big recreation area over there, but it had some contamination from some of the mill workings that happened further upstream. So they capped it and revegetated it, and unfortunately I didn't get a after picture up here. They also installed some wetlands that come out of are fed by our sewage treatment plant and then go back into Willow Creek, so it's a lot of reusing water, which is pretty good. And this has been my major focus since I've been here. This is the Lower Willow Creek Floodplain Project. I don't know if I put a map in there. Okay, but it sits below town, so basically after Willow Creek comes into Creed, it goes through a flume for about a mile and then comes out into this floodplain. And historically it was used to store mill tailings into settling ponds, and so that's what they capped. But we still kind of see some heavy metal loading from the floodplain as it goes into the Rio Grande, so this needed to be addressed. So we partnered with all these entities. This acronym here is the Lower Willow Creek Restoration Company, very similar to Willow Creek. I didn't name them, so. They were formed with 2 people from the city of Creed and 2 people from the previous owner of the floodplain, which was Creed Resources. Creed Resources had tried to donate this land to the city of Creed, but with known contamination issues, they weren't ready to take that on. So this was the solution, was to come up with this nonprofit to manage the funds and manage the activities that happened on the floodplain. We also work with the Brownfields Foundation, the Watershed Assembly, Measurable Results Program, City of Creed, Mineral County. Lawson Ranch is a southern landowner below the floodplain property, and then of course Creed Resources Inc. And to date, this is the cost of the project. I'm sure there'll be more, but you can see costs kind of went up as the years went on. So here's where they were storing all those mill tailings from the mill. This is after one of the fish kill events. This is a flood after one of the fish kill events. So you can see we had a lot of issues. Seems like they have a lot of vegetation at this time, which we don't see currently. So that was the condition. I believe this said 75 on the back. So here's the condition today. As you can see, there's lots of channels going down, and then some vegetation. Mother Nature's working her slow progress, but we'd like to see some human progress. And this is another photo of that, just kind of further illustrating the grading. You can see from this is a 39 aerial photograph. We had very little vegetation then, 85, very little vegetation now, then, and still today. This was 2011, I guess. So this winter and fall, we actually started this project where, here's some of the design plans. We're going to we increased sinuosity, and it used to be a 7,200 mile stretch of creek, and or a mile stretch, and we've increased that to 7,200 feet. So with all these S-curves and things like that, we actually did this winter. We installed 18 rock veins. We have some core rolls to increase vegetation and help with erosion. We're working on vegetation in the future as a long-term thing. Because we have no topsoil down there, it's a very limiting factor for re-veg. So we're looking at this as a long-term commitment for a project. So if you guys know how to create soil, come talk to me. We also, this is a recent talk, we're talking about revamping the Solomon wetlands, and we're working with the Colorado School of Mines. Some lady out of there has got a new design, and they won't be as smelly this time, which is good. And so that's about it, and I thank you for your time and dealing with my nervousness.